Welcome, everyone, back to the next episode of Spidey Swing-Bys. I'm your host, Christian Ashley, of Systematic Geekology, as we continue on through every chronological appearance of Spider-Man by release order. Today, we have two comics to focus on. One of them, not a lot of Spider-Man, but a lot more of Peter Parker. We're starting, of course, today with Amazing Spider-Man 21 and Fantastic Four 35. So we'll go ahead, get our everything done for them. Amazing Spider-Man 21 was released in week 46 of 1964. So technically, the Fantastic Four, happened a little bit before this one, but that's okay. I mean, it's really just a cameo at the end of the day. The release date was November 10th, 1964. The story is called Where Flies the Beetle? It is deliciously written by Stan Lee, deliriously illustrated by Steve Ditko, and delightfully lettered by Sam Rosen. It is, of course, also inked by Steve Ditko and edited by Stan Lee. So for Fantastic Four 35, this is was released in week. I just had it up there. What was I doing with my life? Week 45 of 1964. The release date is November 8th, 1964. The story is called Calamity on Campus. It has an adequate script by Stan Lee, satisfactory art by Jack Kirby, passable inking by Chick Stone, and sufficient lettering by Artie Simek. This is also edited by Stan Lee. So, moving on from there, what else was happening in Marvel this month? Well, plenty, as per usual. We have Journey into Mystery 112, where there's that lisp coming out there. There we go. Where we see Thor recounting his battle that he just had in Avengers. Well, not just had, a couple issues ago in Avengers 3 with the Incredible Hulks to some kids to add a little slight retcon to the story. It didn't last as long in Avengers 3 as it does here, but you know what? Stan's just doing what Stan does best and putting the potential scenarios in there. Who would win? Well, the author decides who wins ultimately at the end of the day. Then we have Tales to Astonish 64, where we have Giant Man and the Wasp fighting against the machinations of Atuma, as his designs on the surface world, while the Hulk battles the leader's humanoids, as we kind of learn a little bit more about who the leader is. Then we have X-Men number 9. This is where the X-Men face off against the mighty Avengers because Thor is tracking something with Mjolnir and ends up getting in conflict with them because of the plans of the evil Lucifer, who we will find one day is the one responsible for Professor X losing his ability to walk in a retcon, which is fine and actually for the time okay. Villain at the end of the day, other than what he does to Charles. So he is about to destroy the world, and only Professor X can stop him. So he needs the X-Men to stop the Avengers from intervening before anything bad can happen. There's X-Men 9. Then we have Avengers 12, where the Mole Man and Red Ghost join forces, causing the Avengers to fight them both against this unholy alliance that, man, I never would have thought of those two characters interacting with each other. And it's a serviceable story. Then we go from there to Sergeant Fury 14, where embarrassed by Nick Fury's continuing successes against the Nazis, Hitler himself orders Baron von Strucker to kill him and the Howling Commandos for good. Almost gets them destroyed by this fake missile thing, and they come out in the end. Imagine that. Then we have Strange Tales 129, where the terrible trio return and remain terrible villains as they menace the Human Torch and Thing, while Doctor Strange investigates a mysterious idol related to the god Taboro. And imagine that the Doctor Strange story is better than the Human Torch and Thing story. Who could have ever seen that happening? Unless you've been reading all of these issues. Then next up we have Tales of Suspense 62, where the Mandarin reveals his backstory to a captured Iron Man who barely gets away in time as dealing with his machinations, as we see Captain America dealing with a prison run by the inmates that he has to escape from. And a very fun story. But you didn't come to hear about those. You came here for some Spider-Man. And we're going to continue in Amazing Spider-Man 21 where he and the Human Torch will face off against the Beetle. As we start off with the Beetle being released from prison and explaining that they had to give back my Beetle equipment. There's no law against a man owning an armored costume, which I guess, but that costume is also kind of a weapon in some way. So I'm sure they'd be able to finagle something there. We do get a recounting of his last battle with the Human Torch in Strange Tales 123. We didn't go over to Johnny and Dory Evans or Doris, as he's realized that the Beetle has been freed from prison. He flames on, leaves her behind, which of course angers her. She has a very, shall we say, anti-superhero bias. That she is one of the worst love interests Johnny has ever had, and a huge, huge shrew. This issue actually makes her a little more palatable to the taste, but yeah. We go to Peter. He's done studying. He gets a suit out, and the regular people get scared because, of course, he's a menace. J. Jonah Jameson has run his smear campaign, so they're wondering, what's he going to do? Someone call the police. And Spider-Man just gets away and says, he's about as well loved by my fellow citizens as Edgar Hoover is by the mafia, which Hoover himself, shall we say, interesting figure of history. But at this point in time, very topical when it's being written because he was being very hard against the mob. So, yeah, good reference to make there. Spider-Man then sees the Human Torch flying by. Everyone loves the Human Torch. They don't love Spider-Man. So he does some tricks for him. Spider-Man gets upset as, why do they keep falling all over him? The Human Torch has not noticed him. He flies away, and the Beetle is stalking him. And Johnny and Peter both, uh, neither one of them shows any situational awareness or anything at all, for that matter, as the giant guy in the purple and green beetle suit is not seen by either one of them. It just failed a spot check there. So they continue on throughout all this, dealing with it as Johnny comes back to see Dory, and she is very upset with him because she wants a boyfriend, not a blazing juvenile show off in a silly uniform, which, in her defense, Johnny is Johnny. He's a huge showboater. He's got to be the center of attention. He's got to be the person that everyone, look at me, look at me, look at me. And that can be immensely grating if she weren't such a shrew about it. As we see that he is being stalked by the Human Torch, by the Beetle who wants his revenge on the Human Torch. And we go from there to see Spider-Man trying to help some people out, but they don't like him because, once again, menace because of J. Jonah Jameson. And as Dory is walking through town, she accidentally gets hit by some kids who are running after their football, drops all her packages, and a kind young man intervenes. And this young man is Peter Parker, who comes up to her and tells her he saw what happened and he didn't have time to warn her. So she starts picking up her packages, gives them to her, tells her it was a pleasure. And she thinks he's what a nice, sweet, gentlemanly boy. But Peter notices she also dropped her wallet into confusion, finds her name is Doris Evans, realizes she doesn't live that far away. So he decides to go to her house and gives it back to her. And says, hey, thank you very much. She's going to give him a Coke, just to for coming back to her. And she realizes he's just so soft-spoken and gentlemanly. He's at a science major at school. He's so cultured and down to earth. If only Johnny were more like Peter Parker. If Johnny Storm could hear that, he would go ballistic. And as Peter leaves, having had a friendly conversation with her, nothing romantic there on his end, Johnny arrives in one of his cool cars, sees some guy walking out of Dory's house, and then talks to him and says, hey, look at me. I haven't played on for 12 hours, just like you wanted, and asks who that fellow was. And Dory, being a woman written by Stan Lee in the 60s, decides that, well, she's going to make him jealous by talking about that nice, refined Peter Parker, and talks about all his efforts in science, how he enjoys doing what he does there, how he's so nice and refined, just a good person overall. And Johnny, of course, gets quite angry over this and decides he's going to go figure out where this Peter Parker is and have a talk with him in his FF uniform, by the way. As they interact, Johnny tells me, Parker, I want to see you now. And Peter turns around and finds Johnny Storm there, who asks him, Hey, you recognize who I am, kid? Sure. Either you're the Human Torch or some jerk walking around in his pajamas. Or maybe both. Great line as Johnny wants to say, Hey, you stay away from my girl. And Peter realizes, oh, this hothead, this idiot, he's actually jealous of me. And he's like, well, imagine if he actually knew who I was. So uh, Flash Thompson notices that the Human Torch is talking to puny Parker. Betty is upset 'cause he's like, Peter was with another girl because, of course, Betty has to be here to overhear like the 15th time that it's possible Peter could have been cheating on her. And meanwhile, she's in a relationship with Ned Leeds. Well, we're not going to talk about that on her end. As she walks away, upset, and Peter snaps at Johnny, who has no idea what he's done, and thinks, well, of course he's going to be afraid of me because I'm the Human Torch of the Fantastic Four. And Peter just tells him, "You brainless, swell-headed, loudmouth jerk. Who do you think you're shooting off your yap at?" And this blows Johnny's mind because, like, he's kind of taking a Flash Thompson point. This is puny Parker. Like, why would he even yell at me? He knows he doesn't stand a chance against me, right? I'm the Human Torch. He doesn't know he's Spider-Man. And Peter just tells him that he's a pain in the neck, doesn't want him around anymore. And the other kids are like, wow. And Peter's like standing up for himself to a superhero at that. But Flash is like, nah, he's just doing it because he knows that the Human Torch wouldn't actually fight him, wouldn't look good for him. So he can say whatever he wants. And Johnny's very upset, leaves, and Peter tries to explain things to Betty about what was going on. She's not willing to listen, which is another huge part. Hey, communication in a relationship, very important thing. Imagine that. We see Peter actually break some cement because he's just that angry, which is a great feat for him at that time, as the Beetle is continuing to stalk Dory Evans's house, waiting for his revenge on Johnny Storm, but gets upset when he sees that Spider-Man has come there. And knowing that's going to be a huge problem, he decides to attack him. Oh, no spider sense, by the way. And Spider-Man's like, what's I just blunder into? And he realizes it's the Beetle. They fight each other. There's no time for 20 questions, the Beetle says. Tries to throw Spider-Man against a tree, but Spider-Man is able to land his feet onto the park, get away, and finds, oh, the Beetle can actually fly. Tries to whack him down, but the Beetle's armor is a little stronger. And of course, Spider-Man, always being someone who holds back, is not going to be willing to go quite for the kill shot yet. And Dory notices that Spider-Man and the Beetle are fighting outside her window, and she's got to go call Johnny. Exactly what you would want her to do. So uh, Johnny wonders if someone's trying to call him just to sue him. And Dory reaches him and tells him, hey, you got to get here and flame on right away. I'm in danger. And he doesn't believe her because she made him promise not to flame on for a certain amount of time. And for 24 hours, he's still got 11 hours to go and he doesn't want to lose it. And of course, girl who cried wolf in this scenario, she actually needs his help. And the blustering dunderhead doesn't actually realize those are legitimate feelings of fear in her voice, and she blames herself rather than, well, this kind of both ways in this one. Johnny's that dumb, goofy grin, this complete doofus, as he's like, I always did like a guy with a sense of humor, which Dory has never really had. So Johnny's just being as dumb as possible, which, hey, that's him. So Spider-Man continues to fight the Beetle, who's able to get out of his webbing a little bit and actually crash into the house. where he's not able to fly around. Dory is trying to get to the phone to call the police, not able to because of the two of them fighting in her presence. And the Beetle, seeing her there and noting that he's not really able to fight Spider-Man as well as he would want to, decides to take her as a hostage and then flies away, hoping to set up a trap for the Human Torch. Spider-Man is not going to take that lying down, so he webs away to try and get to him. But Johnny, who has come to Dory's place again, sees it in shambles, realizes, oh no, this was way worse than I thought it was. She was actually trying to tell me something was going wrong here. So he flames on, breaking the promise so he can figure out what's going on, and then sees Spider Man and realizes, well, he's got something to do with this. So he attacks him because he's a hothead. Imagine that. Spider Man is able to get out of the way. Spider Sense going off, allowing him to be one step ahead of the torch's flames. He tries to web him up. Doesn't quite work as well as he would like to. Spider Man then web swings away. We go over to the Daily Bugle, where we see J. Jonah Jameson talking to Betty Brant, wondering, where's Peter Parker? He hasn't given me any unusual crime photos in a couple of days. And and Betty says she doesn't know, and he just, in typical Jonah fashion, without thinking, just tells her, "Hey, what do you mean you don't know? You're his girlfriend, aren't you?" And that, of course, upsets her because of everything going on with her. And she's like, "Well, could it be possible? Maybe I just misread the situation." So she calls Aunt May to see if Peter is there, but he's not. And Aunt May swore that he could have been with her, and that, of course, makes her upset because, oh, he's probably out with that other girl that I don't know the name of, and I didn't actually get the context for. Typical Marvel melodrama of the early 60s. Spider-Man and the Human Torch are eventually able to reach up to Beetle again, and Human Torch realizes, oh, he had Dory, which is what Spider-Man's been trying to tell him this whole time. They're able to get her to safety for a bit. Then the two then fight against the Beetle, who is using his sucker fingers to take stuff off the wall and attack. But Spider-Man dodges. The Torch does not because, well, he doesn't have spider sense. He doesn't have the reflexes Spider-Man does. So as they continue to fight, they get in each other's way, as always happens between these two, especially early on. They just can't, for the life of them, actually work together to save their lives. But eventually, the Beetle is flying away. The Human Torch like melts through the building. Spider-Man swings through the window. They attack him at the same time, and that is what is able to get him wounded enough to where Spider-Man is able to web him up, and the Human Torch imprisons him in a flame cage. And Dory is like, I think that evil Spider-Man, that horrid Spider-Man, was still in league with the Beetle. And Johnny's like, hey, we've got no proof, and he helped me catch him. And it twists the knife a little more for her. Where it's like, hey, by the way, have you noticed that you don't mind me being the Human Torch at all when you're in trouble? Which multiple facets there. She's in trouble because she's the girlfriend of the Human Torch, but at the same time, she's a person who doesn't like superheroes. Dory Evans is a mess, and I'll be so very happy when she's no longer Johnny's love interest. It's going to take a while, but we'll get there. So Peter is once again upset because people are just telling me, they hate him. Is he just destined to be treated like this evil figure when all he's trying to do is some good in the world? And he sees, everyone else is happy but him, and Johnny's not going to stop him. Uh, he doesn't need to be there anymore. He feels like a third wheel. And Dory kind of asks, what kind of person do you really think he is? And Johnny says, it's hard to say. Sometimes I think he's a really terrific guy, and other times I want to knock his block off. And that's exactly what Spider-Man thinks of him too. And he thinks to himself, I can understand if she fell for a guy like Spidey, but that Peter Parker guy, I just don't get it. Which is just great irony for how he looks at Peter Parker versus Spider-Man, and the two of them just being, well, obviously they can't be the same person. They're nothing alike. As we see Spider-Man alone, just trying to collect his thoughts and wondering, if he can only reveal his secret identity, but I just don't dare. And then we get a fantastic issue of Amazing Spider-Man. One, yeah, this one was well worth reading. It's a classic team up issue between, Peter and Johnny, and there's two hotheads who, as we've seen multiple times before, just don't get along even though they are friendly towards each other. It's that love-hate relationship between the two of them. I love how they play with that. It's so fun. It's a charming thing. The Beetle is used very effectively as a villain for a very goofy '60s outfit that he has right now. I actually really enjoy his journey across Marvel history because eventually, way down the road, when he becomes a member of the Thunderbolts and takes the moniker Mach 5, he becomes a hero. And he's inspired by people like Spider-Man to become a hero. So great. Wonderful characterization, wonderful development for him. It just works. It's really well done. But we're not done for today, as we normally would be. As I give my score here, I'll throw this one an 8.5 out of 10. Not the best, not the worst, not anywhere near the middle. 8.5 out of 10 for some fun superhero action. We have to go to Fantastic Four 35, a Calamity on the Campus, where we get some cameos as well. So Reed Richards, rest of the Fantastic Four are going to State U, where they are going to talk to. No, he is supposed to be giving a lecture that day, and we get the story of how he and both Ben and Reed had both been, college roommates, and they had been the big men on campus around here back in the day. And we get to the bottom of that page there, we see Professor Xavier leaving with Cyclops, who has talked to the dean about some of the students that he requested learning about. And Reed thinks to himself, "No, I've heard of Professor Xavier. He runs some sort of private school in Westchester." And Xavier thinks to himself, "How surprised Richards would be to know that I can read his every thought." And Cyclops is like, "Well, the whole reason we were here is to see if those people were mutants, but they're not. That's the reason for our cameo today." And Xavier extends the offer for him for the dean to come to the school one day, and they've got to leave for their plane. So that's it for them. So they then go over and they see this silhouette of this monstrous figure. As we see, will be revealed to be Dragon Man, created by a man named Professor Gilbert, who is specializing in superpowered humans and trying to research them and create something new, which he is doing in Dragon Man. We then go over to the far off land of Transylvania, where Diablo, after being beaten in issue 30, I think, has come back and a red costume. Did he have a red costume last time? I always remember him more with the green. This is maybe it's a coloring mistake or something. I don't know, man. And he's going to come back for revenge against the Fantastic Four. We didn't see the Thing doing some feats of strength. Uh, and Johnny and him end up bumping together, and he's surprisingly not popular amongst the ladies there, even though, well, he's still a teenager at this time, so it's probably for the best that none of them are. But I still find it surprising that none of them really want to, talk to the Human Torch, teenage heartthrob. So there's that. As we get to the reason for the season, that being, of course, Peter Parker showing up in Fantastic Four 35, where we see the Thing comment on him, say, "Look at that, Shorty. There's another mixed up looking half pint. I bet he's waiting for someone to take his pinky little handy and lead him out of here." And Peter thinks, "Uh-oh, there's a Thing in that swell-headed torch. Maybe they won't notice me if I walk right by." And Johnny thinks to himself, "Hey, I don't know who that is. It's Peter Parker, the guy Dory tried to get friendly with till I put the kibosh on him." Sure you did, Johnny. That's how that story went. And Johnny still thinks, "I wonder if he's planning to enroll at State U. When he finishes high school, if he does, he better stay out of my way while he's here." And the Thing asks, "Say, Sonny, did you see anything of a tall drink of water who looks like his idea of a lot of fun would be to get shipwrecked on a desert island with a slide rule, which is It's a very Benjamin J. Grimm way of saying, "Have you seen Mr. Fantastic?" And Peter says, "If you mean Reed Richards, I noticed him on the football field giving a demonstration." The thing says, "By the way, Parker, what are you doing here? I'm not giving out autographs today." Oh, no, that's Johnny. And Peter says, "You couldn't pay me to take one of yours, Bird Brain. I came to see about enrolling for next year, but if you're going to be here, forget it." The thing then says, "Hey, I'm the only one who can talk to Torchy like that." Johnny says, "Relax, Ben. It makes him feel like a big man because he knows I wouldn't fight with a nobody like him." Yes. Peter thinks, "Someday you're going to find out who this nobody really is, son, and you'll know it." I mean, for a cameo, not bad. Uh, then this would explain why he goes to ESU instead of State U along the way because he's not going to be at the same school as Johnny Storm. So we see Mr. Fantastic in a thing, then kind of playing with the football team. They're trying to tackle the thing, but they can't. So Sue messes with him and uses her invisible force field to just put him elsewhere, which he is very confused by. And she kind of like, "Oh, time to go invisible." Uh, and then notices someone she sees is very familiar. Diablo has come to mess with the Dragon Man there, having heard about him, and decides to utilize him in his plans to stop the Fantastic Four. They then battle with him over time there. As the four team up, attempt to take him down. There, Sue is able to get him down with her invisible force field, and he's not willing to hurt her. At this point in time, Diablo then tries to attack them with some poison. Excuse me, a potion he threw at them, but the Human Torch intervenes, manages to get away. They are able to stop that from happening. Diablo is forced away, and we end up with them just kind of like relaxing, which is nice for them. And Reed and Sue get a nice little moment together where this utter doofus has been wondering, "Oh, does she really like me?" Yeah, I'll tell you, Reed, she stuck around you for 30 some issues with you being you. This woman loves you. So eventually we're going to get to the point where we're going to go to their wedding. Uh, Not terribly long from now, but this is a nice little romantic moment between the two of them and the end of the issue. So as far as being a Fantastic Four comic, this is very solid. The Lee Kirby run is one of the best ones we've ever had. It's like 103-ish issues or something like that. There's some duds in there, but like ones like this introduces Dragon Man, brings Diablo back, has some nice interactions between the team and Professor X, and for Peter Parker, like this is a solid, like I'll say a 9 out of 10. A very fun issue, well worth you guys checking out. So next time we will be in Amazing Spider-Man 22, where he faces off against the reject members of the Ringmaster's Circus of Crime as the Clown tries to take control and renames them the Masters of Menace. And a very probably going to be one of the worst reviewed ones I'm going to give. Maybe that changes if I read it. I don't remember liking it uh, that much along the way in the past. So we shall see. Then finally, Spider Man does make a cameo appearance in the next issue of Fantastic Four 36. So there you go. Thank you guys for everything. Please leave a comment down below, like, subscribe. We'd love to have you here. There's one things you want me to cover more. I'd love to do that. If you have any questions, something I missed, like let me know in the comments down below. So until next time, webheads, see ya.